Today we are here to talk about AC/DC and what the hell is going on with them.
The whole experience of the pop-up shop was a little bit disappointing. It was really the only disappointment of the entire experience.
A few things that are missing from this tour. There's really not much in the way of stage production. In tours past, we've had the wrecking ball, the Angus statue, the runaway train, the giant inflatable Rosie, and there was none of that this time around.
But honestly, I really just have to rip off the Band-Aid when it comes to Brian Johnson. He can't really sing anymore. It's really is a shame.
A phone recording from a California stadium show did something that death, dementia, and disaster never could. It made people question whether AC/DC should still exist. The video wasn't anything dramatic. Just Angus Young playing guitar and Brian Johnson singing at a show in early 2025. But fans watching it noticed something. The guitar solos seemed slower than they remembered. The vocals weren't hitting the same way. And within days, the comments section turned into a battleground. This is the same band that survived their lead singer Bon Scott dying in 1980 and came back with Back in Black, one of the best-selling albums in history. The same band that kept going when founding member Malcolm Young developed dementia.
He got diagnosed then, and then they said he had shrinkage of the brain, and he had some medicines and stuff. You know. He had good care. I mean, he had the best treatment.
The same band that lost their drummer to legal trouble.
The matter was essentially just an angry phone call that resulted in the police getting a search warrant, believe it or not, for possession of cannabis, own use, and a cell phone.
Their singer to hearing problems.
The first thing I did was I went outside to the car and I looked down and I just went, all right, it's not cancer. Which is a stupid and morose thing to say, but it was the only thing I could think of to make myself better. And their bassist to retirement all in 2016 and still managed to come back. But this time felt different. In this video, we're going to look at how AC/DC became one of rock's most indestructible bands, the tragedies that should have ended them but didn't, and why a simple phone video from 2025 has fans wondering if time is finally catching up with them. To really understand what might be ending here, you need to know what these guys built from the ground up. It's 1973 in Sydney, and brothers Malcolm and Angus Young decide they're going to make the simplest, loudest rock music possible. Malcolm literally described their sound as 3 chords, maybe 4 if they were feeling ambitious that day. The music was simple, sure, but it had to be played perfectly. The Young brothers didn't compromise on that. They went through different singers until they found Bon Scott in 1974. Bon was older than the brothers and had this rough, lived-in voice. His lyrics were all about drinking, women, and life on the road. But what made him special was this interesting mix he had. His songs were funny, but also kind of dangerous. He made their rock feel genuinely alive, like something real. With Bon fronting the band, AC/DC started their climb. They played anywhere that would book them. Small pubs, late-night clubs, building their reputation one show at a time. Malcolm ran the band with an iron fist. Show up on time, play it right, earn your keep. That discipline pushed them through a touring schedule that would have broken most bands. Then, 1979 comes around and they release Highway to Hell. It finally breaks them into America. Top 10 in the UK, top 20 in the US. Everything's lined up for their biggest moment yet. And then, tragedy strikes. On February 18, 1980, Bon Scott went out drinking in London. This wasn't unusual for him. Scott was a heavy drinker even by rock star standards. His bandmates had watched him down massive amounts of alcohol and wake up the next morning like nothing happened. They figured he was somehow immune to it. They were wrong. That night, after leaving a club called the Music Machine, Scott was left in the back seat of a friend's car to sleep it off. When his friend came back the next morning, Scott was dead. He was 33 years old. The coroner ruled it acute alcohol poisoning. The band was absolutely devastated. Angus later said it felt like losing a family member. someone you'd been working with intensely for years.
Yeah, it's the same as for us, it was like losing a member of your family. It's very, very difficult to go through something like that.
For Angus, who was much younger than Scott, it was like losing a father figure. The remaining members seriously considered calling it quits. They couldn't imagine continuing without the man who had become the voice of AC/DC. On the flight back to Australia for Scott's funeral, their manager made a case that changed everything. He believed Bon would have wanted them to continue, that quitting would dishonor everything they'd built. Malcolm and Angus thought about it and decided to move forward. But that meant they needed to find a new singer who could handle the weight of replacing a legend. The search led them to Brian Johnson, a singer from Northeast England who'd fronted a band called Geordie. What made this choice feel right was something Bon had said years earlier. He'd actually seen Johnson perform and told his bandmates he was impressed. When Malcolm and Angus remembered that conversation, it felt like a sign. Johnson auditioned in March 1980.
I just got a telephone call, up home, somebody to do with a band. I'm not sure who it was.
Wasn't me.
They just asked us to, if I was interested to come down and try an audition,
He showed up late after getting lost on the way, tears in his eyes over Bon's death. Then he sang Nutbush City Limits, followed by Whole Lotta Rosie. The band looked at each other and just knew. Johnson had the power, the range, everything they needed. Within weeks, they were back in the studio. They recorded Back in Black in the Bahamas between April and May of 1980. Just 6 weeks of intense work that would create one of rock's most significant albums. Producer Mutt Lange helped refine their sound without stripping away the raw power that made them who they were. Every song was credited to Angus and Malcolm Young, though rumors still float around that Bon Scott had written lyrics for some tracks before his death. Angus has always denied this, but the debate keeps going. The album cover was entirely black, a statement of mourning. The record label pushed back hard, but the band wouldn't budge. When Back in Black came out on July 25, 1980, it was both a tribute to Bon and proof that AC/DC wouldn't be stopped. The album shattered every expectation. Number 1 in the UK, France, and Australia. Number 4 in the US, where it stayed on the charts for 131 weeks. The title track and You Shook Me All Night Long became radio staples that turned AC/DC into global superstars. Back in Black sold an estimated 50 million copies worldwide, 27 million in the US alone. Most estimates put it as the second best-selling album of all time, right behind Thriller. But the success meant more than sales. It showed you could move forward after devastating loss and honor someone by refusing to give up. Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine put it well. Back in Black came out when disco was huge and punk and new wave were taking over, and this album just destroyed everybody and put hard rock back on top. For the next 3 decades, AC/DC looked unstoppable. They kept the same core lineup for 20 years and just kept releasing hits throughout the 80s and 90s. For those about to rock, The Razor's Edge, Ballbreaker. They toured constantly, filling stadiums worldwide with fans who came for those massive guitar riffs and Johnson's distinctive scream. Even their 2008 album Black Ice became the second highest selling record of that year, which proved they could still compete in a music industry that had completely transformed since they started. But cracks were forming beneath the surface. In 2011, Malcolm Young got diagnosed with lung cancer. The cancer was treated successfully with surgery, and he also got a pacemaker for a heart condition. These health problems were kept relatively quiet, and Malcolm kept performing. What nobody knew at the time was that he was also showing early symptoms of dementia, a disease that would slowly rob him of the musical mind that had created some of rock's most enduring songs. By 2014, Malcolm's condition had gotten so bad he couldn't perform anymore. His family announced he was suffering from dementia and stepping away from the band. The statement said AC/DC would continue making music, but everyone who knew the band understood this was devastating. Malcolm wasn't just another member, As Brian Johnson later said, he was the heart of the band, and when Malcolm left, that heart stopped beating. The band brought in Malcolm's nephew Stevie Young to fill in on rhythm guitar, which made sense given his connection to the family, but everyone knew it wasn't the same. What happened next can only be described as a cascade of disasters that would have ended most bands. Less than a month before their 2014 album Rock or Bust came out, drummer Phil Rudd got arrested in New Zealand on charges that included attempting to procure a murder, threatening to kill, and possession of meth and marijuana. The murder charge was eventually dropped, but Rudd was convicted on the threatened drug charges. He served 8 months of home detention. Chris Slade, who drummed for them in the early 90s, stepped in for the tour. Then, in March 2016, the band announced that Brian Johnson had been ordered by doctors to stop touring immediately, or risk total and permanent hearing loss.
What it is basically a razor net in your ears, and the things at the back, they're pumps. And so basically the whole idea is the brain really doesn't care where it's getting the sound from. So what he's created is 2 prosthetic eardrums.
Johnson had been struggling with hearing problems throughout the tour. He couldn't hear the tone of the guitars and was relying on muscle memory and reading lips just to get through performances. He described it as a horrible kind of deafness. The remaining tour dates were completed with Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses stepping in, which was just surreal. After Johnson's departure, bassist Cliff Williams announced he was done.
It's time for me to step out, that's all. No, not because we've lost Mal, Phil or Brian. I mean, everything changes when something happens like that. When Bond died, it changed then.
He'd been with the band since 1977 and had given everything. He was retiring. By the end of the Rock or Bust tour, AC/DC was just Angus Young and a collection of substitute players. The band that had kept the same lineup for 20 years had lost its rhythm guitarist to dementia, its drummer to criminal charges, its singer to hearing loss, and its bassist to exhaustion, all while Malcolm Young was dying in a care facility, his dementia having progressed so far that his family restricted visits to preserve his dignity. Malcolm Young died on November 18, 2017. He was 64 years old.
Now, the rock world saying goodbye to a beloved guitarist today. Malcolm Young of AC/DC has died.
His death brought the remaining members of AC/DC back to Australia for his funeral, and this reunion in grief became the seed of an impossible comeback. Angus saw Phil Rudd at the funeral and was struck by how good he looked. He'd gotten therapy and sorted himself out. Brian Johnson and Cliff Williams were there too, and for the first time since the chaos of the Rock or Bust tour, the key members of the band were in the same place at the same time. Angus started thinking about the archive of unreleased songs he and Malcolm had worked on over the years, riffs and ideas that Malcolm had contributed to, pieces of his musical mind preserved in recordings and notes. Angus decided he wanted to make one more album, a tribute to his brother, using material Malcolm had helped create. He started reaching out to the other members. Johnson had been working with a specialist on experimental hearing treatment that involved technology using the bone structure in his skull as a receiver. The exact details were covered by a non-disclosure agreement, but the treatment had worked well enough that Johnson felt capable of recording again. Rudd had gotten his life back together and was eager to return. Williams agreed to come out of retirement for this project. The recording sessions happened in late 2018 and early 2019, bringing together what Brian Johnson called the unit, the lineup the world had recognized as AC/DC since 1980. The resulting album, Power Up, was released in November 2020. It reached #1 in 21 countries. This was a remarkable achievement for a band that had seemed finished. Johnson described it as the band having a point to prove. They were the originals, and they wanted to show what they could do. The COVID pandemic delayed their touring plans, but AC/DC finally returned to the stage at the Power Trip Festival in October 2023. their first performance since 2016. The show felt like a miracle to fans who thought they'd never see this lineup together again. When the band announced a full Power Up World Tour beginning in May 2024, the response was overwhelming. Tickets sold out in minutes for stadium shows across Europe and North America. But there were changes that reflected the band's age and circumstances. Cliff Williams had retired again, replaced by Chris Chaney from Jane's Addiction. Matt Logg took over drumming from Phil Rudd, who apparently faced visa issues that prevented him from touring in certain countries. The European leg in 2024 got generally positive reviews. Many noted the band was remarkably good considering their ages. Angus at 70 still doing his energetic stage antics, Brian Johnson at 77 powering through a 2-hour set list of AC/DC's most demanding songs. The shows had all the classic spectacle fans expected. Cannons firing during For Those About to Rock, massive bells ringing for Hell's Bells. Audiences left satisfied, feeling they'd witnessed something special and perhaps final. But as the tour continued into 2025 with dates across North America and a return to Europe, a different narrative started emerging. Some fans who attended shows reported they could see the toll of touring on the band, particularly on Angus and Brian. That viral video from Pasadena was just one of several moments that sparked criticism online. Fans debated whether Angus's playing had lost some speed and precision, whether Brian's voice had deteriorated to the point where it affected the performances. These discussions got complicated because many other fans at the same shows insisted everything had been excellent, leading to accusations that poor sound engineering at certain venues was being mistaken for declining performance. The criticism of AC/DC's current performances touches on something broader and uncomfortable about rock music and aging. The genre was created by and for young people, built on energy and rebellion and the assumption that you'd burn out before you got old. The rock stars who survived the chaos of the 60s and 70s were never supposed to still be performing in their 70s and 80s. There was no roadmap for this. Angus Young is 70 years old. He's spent over 50 years running around stages in a schoolboy uniform, playing guitar with an intensity that would exhaust someone half his age. Brian Johnson is 77, singing songs that require him to scream at the top of his vocal range while tens of thousands of people watch and judge every note. The fact that they can do this at all is extraordinary. They can do it well enough to fill stadiums is remarkable. But it's not the same as what they were capable of 20 or 30 years ago, and pretending otherwise does a disservice to everyone. The defenders make valid points. Sound engineering issues at certain venues have created problems that get blamed on the band. Comparing 70-year-old performers to recordings from their 20s is fundamentally unfair. Other bands continue touring with members far older than AC/DC. If you don't want to see an older version of the band, don't buy tickets. All reasonable arguments, but the critics have a point too. There's something uncomfortable about watching legends struggle, about seeing the physical limitations of age on display in a genre that's always celebrated youth and vitality. Some fans found recent performances difficult to watch. They left feeling sad rather than energized. The question becomes whether continuing to tour in this condition serves the band's legacy or diminishes it. The debate about AC/DC's current performances is ultimately about how legends should end. Should they go out on top, preserving the memory of their peak years, or continue as long as they're physically capable, giving fans any opportunity to see them? There's no clear answer, and people will always disagree based on what they value most. What makes AC/DC's situation particularly complex is that they've already survived multiple near-death experiences. They overcame Bon Scott's death and came back stronger. They survived the chaos of the Rock or Bust tour when it seemed impossible. They released Power Up when most thought the band was finished. Each time they proved the doubters wrong. But surviving tragedy in your 40s is different from maintaining quality performances in your 70s. Age isn't a crisis you can overcome through determination. It's an inevitable decline that affects everyone. The viral video from Pasadena might be the beginning of the end, or it might be an isolated moment. The truth is probably somewhere in between. Some shows are excellent, proving the band can still deliver. Others reveal the limitations of age and decades on the road. This is what happens when you push the boundaries of what should be physically possible in your 70s. The downfall narrative some people apply to AC/DC is both accurate and incomplete. Yes, the band has experienced tremendous losses. Yes, the current lineup features only one founding member. Yes, there's legitimate criticism that suggests age has taken its toll. But calling it a simple downfall ignores the remarkable resilience that brought them back from multiple disasters. It ignores that they filled stadiums in 2025 when they could have retired years ago. The final chapter hasn't been written yet. Whether it ends with a triumphant final tour or a slow decline is still unknown. What is known is that for over 50 years, they've been one of the most important rock bands in the world. They've survived tragedy, lineup changes, health crises, and changing tastes across generations. They've created music that's become part of the cultural fabric. That's the real story, not any single viral video or review. The thunder may be fading, but the echo of what they created will resonate for generations to come.